Welcome, restoration professionals, to Restoration Minutes, your source for industry information and education. Be sure to like and rate us if you enjoy the content we provide.
All right, welcome in everyone to a new episode. Today I've got Kory Kappes with us. He is with one of the ServPro large loss teams and is part owner of that. And I'm going to let him tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to talk a little bit of shop, our experiences in the large loss world. He has a very similar background to mine, and he's been very proactive on the circuit and sharing his knowledge and, his philosophy of trying to bridge the gap, like I talk about sometimes, between us and the client, and then us and the insurance world and the consultants and all that kind of stuff to come to better outcomes for the client, ultimately. So Kory, tell us a little bit about your background. I know I've known of you for a few years, and shoot it. Tell us all about yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I've been in the industry for 10 plus years now. I got in with ServPro back in 2015 in Colorado. Immediately was kind of thrown to the wolves in the large loss side, and then got
Aren't we all?
recruited up. Yeah. Got recruited up into Seattle. Worked with a great ServPro outfit out there for a while, and then recruited to Atlanta to continue with another ServPro. And then about 2 years ago, I was offered an ownership opportunity to come in and run a large loss division, with kind of taking my version of an employee of all that time and seeing kind of the best route that I thought possible to get a team up and going off the ground, and to outfit us correctly and to approach the right clientele, things of that nature. And I partner with some great guys out in Utah. They own 5 franchises between Salt Lake and St. George, and they're really good dudes. But yeah, I've always done the large loss. I've been with ServPro my whole career. And I really kind of the last few years have focused on a more niche market, the complex large loss. I try to specialize in that and really push that agenda for clientele I want to be in front of, the people that I'm pushing MSAs with, et cetera.
Well, without saying any of the names, the clients, because, I know that's always a touchy thing. Most of our clients in our large loss world, they don't ever want anyone to know that they had anything happen, and so the quicker we can get in, quit out. But what is probably one of the most complex projects, that you can share with us about, describing, the situation?
A few different ones. I did a monster hospital loss that was, up there in complexities that really just, I've always loved that loss. I wouldn't want to do it again. Um, I think I ran 18-hour days, literally slept on the job kind of thing, just because I had to keep control of all of the things going on, and it was during that big freeze event in Atlanta some years back. But
Okay.
typically one of my complex large loss is going to be a factory fire, food manufacturing, confined space, keeping the factory running, business interruption is going to drive it. So,
Yep.
my most of my clients actively over the last few years are in the manufacturing or food manufacturing space. Um, and they really, they don't want the world to know I just had a big accident.
Yep.
Especially in today's social media, and just, how quick the media will jump on anything.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, and then a lot of them are going to be driven by business interruption. Like I'm saying, they're going to be based on, we need to either get operational or stay operational through this process.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because me and you spoke last week about that especially a lot of younger restorers and people that are just now getting into the commercial market. BI is one of those things that they just takes them a while to grasp that, and so they move slow. And I think that's what's hurting some of the bigger companies out there today. There are a lot of bigger companies that don't own a lot of equipment on hand, but they got big names, not to say anything, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything, but it seems to take them time to get stuff mobilized and on a job site. And I understand the business model, because they're not having all that carrying cost. The company I came from just now, I mean, we had 90 tractor trailers of equipment. We probably had 50 different generators, all the way up to a half meg. We had probably 20 different desiccants, but we had 3 in my Florida location and 2 in the Maryland location that were our main hubs for our cat division. Full-time mechanics. I mean, so there's a lot of carrying costs, not to mention the parts and all the maintenance and all that kind of stuff and the cost that goes into that. So I get the model and I understand that, but expediency when it comes to business interruption is crazy. I mean, I know me and you were talking, I've done some projects where clients were losing $1 million a day. In some of those manufacturing, it may have been more than that, and how fast we can turn and burn or keep them open becomes important, because the old school thinking that I was trained in originally, and probably you too, is, oh, we got to get everybody out of here, for us to do our job. You got to shut down, you got to quit, you got to leave the premises, all these types of things. So what have you done to try to educate other restorers and explain that side of the business to them that they just don't seem to get until they've been doing it for a while?
Yeah, that was one of the things I helped edit. Pro put out a new commercial playbook this year, and they had some folks at corporate reached out to me and said, "Hey, could you take a look at this?" And not to throw anybody under the bus, but the one thing I noticed was we weren't talking about business interruption. There was just no context in it, and which is what drives all the urgency on most of my claims. And just to take a step back, the majority of my claims are coming in directly from an adjuster, consultant, engineer, and IH referral. When I say referral, they're probably referring 3 companies and saying, "Hey, these are the 3 that are qualified, in our opinion, to handle this type of loss."
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how often I see the same companies at these types of projects. And so I'm going in with the understanding that, I'm going to work with this adjusting team as a whole, because I'm going to look at this protocol and first make sure that I can even complete it. The methods are something that my team can manage and handle. And then look at timelines, look at, like you're saying, business interruptions driving probably the reason that I was even recommended. So I'm trying to understand the complexity of the claim, the amount of people that are out, the list goes on and on, right? So for
Yeah.
me, as I've talked about that, it blows my mind in our industry. It's not something that's just openly discussed, and I don't know why, because it literally dictates the majority of the claims I'm on.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, it's us as restorers and education, on part of that. But I think the other side of that is, when I got started, I think my first large loss project that I solely handled was in like 2010. And these clients had no idea. They had no clue, how much money they're losing each day. But I think as time has gone on, and especially people that are on coastlines have gotten wiser to that, much less, manufacturers. If someone's part of a bigger company, yes, those people are going to know to the penny how much they make a day out of that location, and so clients have gotten wiser, and restorers, we've got to catch up. And now at this point, and, as an industry as a whole. And so, yeah, that's what gives people strength and power, is coming in, like you and I and other people that have been doing it for a while do. Another guy I'm interviewing this afternoon, Chris Carter. I'm not sure if you know him. I know he's had some experience, a lot of experience in that. He's been doing it for 25 years. That's kind of what I lead with now, is like, hey, what is being shut down, costing you each day? And is there something that is a low hanging fruit area that I can open up and kind of get you opening at a partial rate, or, whatever the case may be? Having that conversation with a client is going to buy you so much credibility and faith, that you're going to blow anybody else that may bidding on the project out of the way. It's nuts.
So I've got a client that had, at their peak, 504 locations. I'm using them as an example. One of my clients has 6,000 locations, and none of them are any good. But this client, at one point, 504 locations across the country, a huge national brand, big box, everything 50,000 square feet to about 120,000 square feet on some of the biggest ones. And they said, "Look, here's the issues we're having. When we call your 1-800 number, we don't know who's coming out, right?
Yeah.
And we want to have a working relationship with the people we're working with, and not just this be the first introduction at my worst, time." So we put together the map of all their locations, and made it interactive for them, that basically they could go through and click on, location 489 in, Knoxville, Tennessee, let's say. And under that would produce all the pertinent information, because they all had area managers, district managers, day managers, night managers, you name it, right? So there
Yeah.
was a chain of command for everybody. And so we got all this information. They just had it in a spreadsheet, which made it really easy for us to auto populate into what we were using at the time. And then we sent it back to them and said, "Hey, for you guys, here's what we've already planned. We already know who's handling what location. And it wasn't that I was divvying it up based necessarily on zip code. I was divvying it up based on relationships and coverage area.
Capability.
If I had a franchise that was an hour from that location, but they could cover enough locations that they understood the entire process. Cause, billing, collections, all of it's fun. And I've got to get my pound of flesh for managing it if I'm not going out and doing the work. I'm sorry, but
Yep.
I'm the one that's built this system. And it's my name and reputation that the entire MSA is built on. And I
Yep.
think that gets lost all the time. That's the first thing I tell my people on a project. Like, I thank them for being there as I'm shaking my table. Sorry.
No, you're good.
And you and I have already talked about this previously, but we'll touch on it more here today. The human factor is very important in everything that we do and how we approach things, taking care
Yep.
of our people and taking care of the brands that we're associated with and who we're helping. But we look at it in that sense, like, we want to make sure that we've got the right people aligned to handle your loss. And so we put this map together, 504 locations, everything goes great. No big deal. Hurricane season happens. We get a couple of losses from them. And we're already responding because I'm camping in their parking lots. And they're in every major city. So, it's a great relationship to have. And then the freeze event happens and they get 50 of these facilities damaged in one night.
Oh, wow.
And just, I say one night, but you remember how that was like the 24th, 25th of December. That just
Oh, yeah. My
crazy here in the
phone.
Southeast.
I got home after Ian finished up a huge project. Probably one of the more complex projects I'd ever done, just because of how much they were losing each day in revenue and how many different buildings they had. And I got home for about, I think I made it home on like the 15th of December. It was like, all right, I want to get some time to relax. It was like Christmas Eve, my phone started blowing up. I was like,
Yep.
oh my God.
I'd been in Kentucky for my dad's birthday, and it was the first year, his first birthday after losing my mom, and it was like I had to be there. And then as I drove from Georgia to Kentucky, just the temperature, So I got up there. We're at his birthday party that night, and we've got freezing rain, and very, people can't really get out. And so I'm telling him like, Dad, I'm gonna get up in the morning, come kiss you goodbye, but I got to get back to Georgia. Like, it's already popping off to, and then it did, and it was nonstop. I mean, it was unbelievable. But we were able to service all those locations, right, and the
Yep.
right people, and it all went well. But that's really the thing is, we were talking about educating the industry is everyone loves to go after, every brand goes after the chase.
Oh, yeah.
There was a couple big news losses recently that have really dominated the news cycle. And I've had people reach out, vendors of some type, saying, "Oh, I heard that so and so is looking for a new vendor on this because another company got kicked off." Okay, great, and I'm trying to reach out to the players involved to see if I can at least throw my hat in this. And you're kind of understanding who's communicating with whom in the industry during these things, right?
Yep.
Um, and so, a big opportunity is all over the news in the last few weeks, and you're talking to amongst industry folks, and people don't understand that these big corporations, they have this, planned out in advance. They're not scrambling
Yep.
that day as every restorer in the world is trying to add somebody on LinkedIn or find a phone number to that guy that manages that district area or whatever, or the CEO of, some huge logistics firm. What they don't understand is that a plan had already been in place through most of these. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of one-offs. There's a lot of,
Yep.
factory fires and things that they don't, but everybody goes chasing after this one opportunity, not realizing the amount of work that's been put in on the back end of whoever is that responding company,
Yep.
restore. And I think that that's where if they would put more effort into that front end opportunity to getting in front of that client, creating a plan specific to each location, not just saying, "Oh, we cover nationwide." I do that all the time. I cover nationwide. You call me, I'm going to respond anywhere you need me. I can go international. It doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
I'll figure it out if you're willing to pay for it.
Yep.
That's the thing. So what makes sense to your business model is different. So let's look at that. How can I create a network that's going to be able to respond to you to handle this opportunity to try and mitigate it as quick as we can. Again, we're talking BI on a lot of this stuff. So it's one of those things in our industry. I think people really think, "Oh, I'm going to go chase and land this opportunity and waste all this energy and effort to, in reality, that job was signed up 6, 9 months ago in a boardroom through an RFP process, probably, or through a relationship that had
Yep.
evolved over years. Yes, there's the few and far between that go the other way, but let's be real. put the effort in on the front end, like build a plan, create a
Yeah, it's
network
what
and do
shocks
those
me
things.
is the lack of, when I say salespeople, I'm talking like true relationship salespeople.
Right.
And, you know, not to beat up on any private equity groups, so I'm not going to say any names, but it's like
They're all
every
private
time
equity groups now.
I know it, but it's like every time that they get ready to repackage and rebundle to resell, they lay off salespeople. Anytime there's
Yep.
been a non-event year like this year, you start hearing about salespeople. Now, if they weren't producing, go for it, but it seems like people do not give any quality the more private equity gets involved, to the staff that they have. I mean, it's scary. I got a lot of friends that were great at what they do, and gotten let go, during these times
Yeah.
just because of they were a number, and you know kind of like what you were talking about, it's like that is the backbone of your longevity. And I did a podcast with a friend of mine, I guess about a month ago, and that's kind of what we got into is like during times like now when this is when the strong get stronger if they're smart,
Hmm.
because instead of cutting salespeople, they're bringing in more. you
Yep.
know, they're getting out there and they're gonna when you start slacking, they're gonna take your slack if you let them. And so, and I understand, especially on smaller companies. I've worked for all different sizes, as I'm sure you have, and I can get it. If you don't have the budget, you don't have the budget. But if you do have the budget, you've been a good squirrel, then this is not the time to cut. This is the time when I'd go out and I would hire someone else. You may even get a good deal on them, kind of a thing. But, treating people, kind of jump off of that into how our industry treats their staff, from the technician all the way up. And it's like they want great performing people and they want to set up all these trainings and certifications and they want them to behave like professionals, but our industry don't want to pay them like professionals. I know I'm
Oh
getting into
God.
one of your pet peeves now, so
Oh man.
go
So,
ahead, go
so
for it.
I'll tell you, when I had the opportunity to get into ownership with this industry, the main thing that, I didn't want is for my employees to ever feel the way that I had felt or that I had seen other people be treated or just, how they felt about the industry as a whole. Again, I had spent the prior time as an employee, as the guy who was consistently bringing in major work year over year over year, but that was never enough, Unfortunately, this industry is what are you doing for me, not what have you done for me?
Yep,
And as you know, the ones that I've got a few relationships that I know that one day I'll get a phone call and it'll be that $100 million loss,
yep,
and I'm certain that when that day comes, I've aligned myself with the right people to be able to handle that when it comes to vendors, when it comes to just financing it, the works, right? But I also have people in the industry that when we get busy, when the industry as a whole is busy, that as soon as I say, hey, I'm on a project for, 90 days. I'm looking for a few good supervisors. I have guys that leave jobs they're already on that could be longer to come be on our projects for the
yep,
simple fact that I'm going to treat them better than what other people do. I'm going to pay them quick. I'm going to feed them good. I'm going to house them good. I'm going to not treat them like a number, like you said. These are dudes
yep,
that have my back. And you and I talked about this the other day. I can't do all this work. I like to try and be everyone's flex seal or whatever, those stupid late night commercial, fix that problem, right? But what I mean is that I have a team that handles those things, and I also then have a network of people that handles those things.
yep,
I get the phone call often, and the way this, last year I told you we did a lot of really good projects. I did 4 projects the whole year, and literally it goes, I get a phone call, fly out to middle of nowhere, Nebraska or Iowa or Minnesota, expect a loss at a manufacturing facility. At this point, usually I already know if it's an MSA client, I've already got everything, in the works. I've called a local that I've already got a partnership with that's come out and done some necessary EMS. I'm then writing a script at this point. The insurance team probably has engineers and IHs en route. They're going to put together a protocol based on what they think, and I'm already putting together what I think. And through this process, then I'm orchestrating more of here's a blueprint. Here are the people that are going to facilitate all these things, but I don't need to sit here and babysit this. I get to
Yep.
hand it off to great people, great employees. And the reason that I feel like I can be comfortable in handing projects off to my guys, and don't get me wrong, a few of them I lived on last year and a few of them I didn't, just depending on the type of work.
Yep.
You know, fire cleanings, complex fire cleanings. I have a team that really I can just plug and play. They've done so many with me. They're very, very well prepared for that type of work. Now, if it's something more complex, I might stay and hang out, or I might come back more often, etc. But I have guys that again will drop whatever they're doing to come and help me out.
Yep.
I didn't have them by the first phone call. I didn't just earn these guys loyalty and respect by saying, "Hey, I'm going to promise you all these great things." I've worked with these guys on dozens of them. Gosh, you know, a few of them, literally 50 plus major projects over the years. They have my back, and I have to then have theirs. And what that means is I'm not looking and I tell the insurance company, I tell the clients, I tell everyone point blank, I'm not looking to get the cheapest labor. I'm not looking to
Nope.
get the cheap. I'm never going to be your cheapest guy. If price matters so much that it's going to drive this whole project, I'm out. All right.
Yep.
But if you want quality, if you want a project that's not going to have bullshit or hassles or people getting kicked off or caught, you know, smoking in a building or what, you know, all the
Sleeping
crap
in
that
a
labor.
closet.
Yes. You know,
All
someone
that
just
stuff.
trying to milk a clock. That's not going to happen on my job because we don't allow it. Because we don't even have to worry about it because our guys are taken care of. Our labor's well paid. Our labor's well fed. Our labor's put in good hotels. They're put in good rental vehicles. They're not sardines. They're not to be treated like pack animals. These are the people that are the most important asset in my entire business. And that's the general labor up. I'm a dime a dozen. There's a lot of people that think they know how to run large lofts. I
Yeah.
promise you, I'm an easy, you know, void to fill. But the folks that do it correctly, that care about it, and you have these conversations on these jobs, you tell these people, and your people know. You know, we quite literally have conversations every day about how you treat people, how you handle circumstances on projects and things like that, how you report it, how you communicate it to the team. We don't hide it. We have issues with labor or with any personnel. Our client is well, you know, entrenched in all of that because
Oh yeah.
we're in their house, right? Like
And if
I
you
just
don't tell
dirtied
them
up
and they
their
find
rug.
out, then it's bad.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on a major medical university hospital project, and I told you it's one of the most complex projects I've ever done. Horrible time of year with all the freeze event. I had hundreds of projects going on that we had given away to other people throughout the industry because we could only do so much. Like within an hour, I think they said we had 1,200 phone calls the first night.
Oh wow.
You know, and you remember the office in Atlanta, and they were just cooking. We had just stuff going on. So I'm on that project. I can't sleep. I've got good folks around me. It's not a lack of that. It's just a lack of people in general. You couldn't get more people. Also, I had very complex things I was dealing with and complex personnel. So all of that is going on, right? Oh, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're all right.
Oh no, something bad that happened on the job. So I finally get the job to where it's humming, you know, it's smooth. I'm sleeping in the corner. I'm the guy sleeping on the job. I'm an hour and a half from the job home, so most nights I didn't even come home. I just sleep in the truck or sleep on the job. Um, but it just didn't make sense to do that. So things like finally smooth out. I got to go home one night and I've left at like 5 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. So I'm feeling real good. Do my thing. My now fiance, you know, she and I have dinner or something that night and get in bed early, show back up 5 a.m. Somebody stole $6 out of a petty cash store that night. Gut wrenching for me. Sent literally the most embarrassing email of my life that morning. As soon as before I even went and investigated further what had happened, I talked to the one woman that found, you know, and figured it out. They didn't know who, they just knew of a group. So I immediately reached out to the CEO who I'd been dealing with directly and said, "Hey, you know, I've had an incident on the job. An employee, somebody said has stolen, you know, some money out of the petty cash. What do I need to do to make this right? We've already gotten rid of the entire crew that worked that shift. You know, just you're done."
Yep.
And I was literally, to me, the most embarrassing thing I've ever had to be a part of. And a few hours go by, the CEO emails me back and has the entire group of 40 people on it that's been on, and he's like, Kory, no worries. Appreciate you guys giving us a heads up on this. We understand you've got a lot of personnel on here and you can't keep your eye on everyone all the time, etc. And was very cool about it. And then he came and spoke to me face to face. And, I really was kind of blown away that something that was major to me, I thought to him, it was no big deal. And he was just glad because
Well,
that's the way you
I
got to
tell
treat every
people.
one of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I tell people, what sets us apart, and this goes all the way back to when I first got started in the industry. And, people would say, oh, well, so and so company over here, they did this stupid thing, and here I am, I'm trying to get this client's business. And just from, sales training, and I used to own my own nutrition stores, you never talk bad about the competition. And so, way I would always approach that is like, listen, crap happens to all of us, Mrs. Clint.
Yep.
It's how we respond that sets us aside, and so that's why, they probably took that, because if they would have had to find out and then come to you about the
Oh,
$6,
yeah.
that $6 might as well have been $1 million. And so the fact that you hit it off, and, and when dealt with, my labor groups and even our employees, I tell them, because kind of like I'm working in teams with a supervisor, and I tell them all, I said, listen, police yourselves, because if one of you does something stupid like that, or falls asleep, or starts throwing stuff, or leaves a mess, I'm going to can and punish your entire team. So you better
Yep.
police yourselves, kind of a thing. And so uh, that really, once I started doing that a few years back, that really helped. You still always going to have that bad apple. I mean, there's just no way around it. But kind of like I got a labor company that we dealt with, that we trusted, you know, man, that the owner would handle it as well, of that labor company. And, I've had things like that. I've had candy stolen out of teachers' desk and jars, drinks taken out of mini fridges,
Many
all this.
fridges are the worst,
Oh
man.
my God, man.
When
When
people
they're
work
hot
night
and they
shifts,
see that cold drink and they just can't turn that 50 cent down to walk outside and get ice
oh
water.
man, I just don't get it. Like that was the other thing that went missing that night was candy.
Yeah. No,
Petty cash and
we
candy out of
worked
one
with a
drawer. And the lady
partner.
knew exactly what she had.
Oh yeah, they always do. And it's like,
Yeah.
I worked with a partner, and we had one supervisor, and we gave him crap. I'm not going to call him out. For a long time, he was called the Candy King, because like candy got taken. Like, I bet we bought $3,000 worth of candy for this entire school.
I don't know where it went. Must
you
have been
know,
day shift.
so his staff for like 2 weeks must have just been eating every bit of the candy that they could find.
Well, as we were talking about personnel, that's like you're sitting here touching on it, taking care of your personnel, right? Like
Yep.
last year, we got a big loss in the Midwest. Sorry, the dishwasher's letting me know.
That's all right.
I think.
It probably wouldn't even pick
Um,
it up.
so we got a big loss in the Midwest. Straight line winds ripped off a distribution center's roof, and we're we get the call, we respond, right? Like that's the deal with all my guys. But one of the things that I hated all of this time that I've worked for other people was every time I ever planned something, a vacation, or if you're dating, or if you got a family, any of it, right? You're going through and you're battling the calendar. Um, and so I just told my guys, try to give me as much advance notice as possible. But if you've got a vacation, I'm not making you work that vacation. I'm not making you cancel that vacation, because, it's your family you're canceling on, not me. You gave me 6 months notice. So
How
of
many
course,
owners basically would let someone go over that, or tell them that they can't take it, or would
oh,
berate them for taking it? And
it,
it's the
I've
happened to me. I
seen
know it's happened to you.
every single version of it, and it still baffles me because, quite literally, like I said, I can't do the work. I could. I could probably be a very efficient employee in, up with a harness on, doing a high ceiling for about 30 minutes before one of my bad shoulders kicks in and I'm out for the rest of the day, right?
Yep.
So me doing that for years to get those places operational ain't gonna happen, right? So I got to take care of these people. So he tells me, I've got this event he goes to every year in Orlando. He doesn't want to miss it. No problem. We get the loss in. He calls me. He says, "Oh, I'll be there. I'll be there." I'm like, "No, you won't. You're going to Orlando with your family. You got a 2-year-old. You and your wife have already planned this. I'll see you on the 11th or whatever the day, when you get back, I need you to fly out that night if possible, because then we can get you incorporated to the next day. And then the day after that, I needed to be somewhere. So I said, I'll fly out
Yep.
at that point. And I don't even need to really incorporate this guy to the job. He's worked with me long enough. He knows everything. People don't understand that. And another thing, how easy that little thing buys loyalty
Oh
and,
my
and,
God.
and unpledged loyalty, right? Another thing that I did is he asked for a specific amount of money when we hired him. He wanted a salary, and then we were going to give him a bonus structure and all that. I gave him 5 grand more, 5 grand more base. And I do this with anytime I go to hire someone. I say, if they're asking for, say, someone's asking for 125, I'm going to pay somebody 130, probably 135. And here's why: that 5 to 10 grand over the course of the year doesn't really cost me anything as an owner. The amount of productivity that I've gained out of that employee is far more than that $10,000 or
And why
$5,000.
some owners cannot see that, I do not understand. I had a guy a few years ago. I tried to get a raise, and I got so much pushback. And it's like, oh, we can't pay him because of his title, and his day to day job was just, as project manager. But this guy had just ran a $5 million job all by himself.
Yeah,
And I'm like, this dude just made enough profit to pay for himself for the next 10 years, and you're going to push me
exactly.
back on $10,000? I mean,
That's what baffles me. They treat it like nobody knows the money, right?
yeah.
Let's just put the gold elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Restoration owners treat everything like there is no profit to be made. There's no money to go
Oh,
anywhere.
shucks, I'm over a barrel. We only did $50 million worth of work last year.
Yeah,
What?
I, I'm the one that does the invoicing, so I know the amount of money being made.
And you know
So
the profit margin, and that's
yeah,
what
I
blows my
know what my
mind.
people cost. I know what I get a billing for.
Yeah.
It's horse nonsense
Oh, yeah. I
is
mean,
what
I
it
did
is.
one project. That was a $19 million project 2 years ago. And that would include construction, so you would think, low numbers and stuff, but I managed everything very well. I think we made and cleared 9.5,
Yep.
and then
I
I
mean,
get and then I get pushback for trying to get my guys, bonuses and raises at the end of the year, and something like that. And I'm like, okay, don't try to tell me that, oh, we got this overhead and that overhead. I mean, come on. I mean,
it, well, and
it,
that's the thing is they run crazy on overhead. It takes us back to earlier. You were talking about 90 semis and all the mechanics and everything, right? And I've traveled and mentored all over the country. Blows my mind the amount of folks that have idle assets that look at it as well, when I use them, I'm making this much money on them, right?
Yep,
And so when I partnered with the Tatums in Utah, we talked about these things. We don't need to buy a lot of things. Where do we make our money? We make our money on the labor. We make our money on small format equipment. We make our money on, really on the things we can control, the subcontract. And what I mean by that is partnering with vendors that are going to give me quick pay discounts, that are going to give me,
yep,
discounts on volume, things of that nature. So that way, then as a business owner, I can make the decisions of how quick I'm going to pay someone based on the amount of money more I could make from an invoice, right?
yep,
And I don't, I'm getting my 10 and 10 on the job. I'm discussing those things on the front end anyways with whoever I'm working with. So these aren't fights on the back end, right? But for me, I sit and look at it as I can take on any project I want. I can have the right personnel because throughout the year we take care of those people and we want to make sure that we're, thinking about it. We're front of mind. And it's the same with our clients though, right? Like,
yep,
I told you the story the other day. I was at a project in Iowa and we're in the middle of nowhere. And I'm using my hotel room as an office one day, I think early on in the job. And I get a knock on the door. The lady said, can I just, give you some towels or change your trash or whatever, right? And I said, oh, yeah, sorry, And she said, well, I just wanted to thank you guys also for being here. And I thought, well, that's really weird for housekeeping to thank me for being there. I was like, yeah, no problem. She said, well, I actually work at the factory And since they had the fire 2 weeks ago, I've not been able to have a shift. So I haven't made any money. And the hotel owner was nice enough to let me pick up a few shifts a week here. She's like, so the sooner you guys get done, the sooner I can go back to work. So we're really glad you're here. Well, man, now all of a sudden it's got a whole new meaning, right?
Yep.
Because
The
I'm,
people
I'm,
element.
I'm, yeah, I'm sitting here meeting the real face of who's losing out. It's not the entity I think that we were working for was a $30 billion corporation. Wasn't anybody, in their C-suite for sure,
Yep.
but it was this hourly employee who relied on the overtime shifts and other things to get by in the middle of nowhere, Iowa or Nebraska or Minnesota or,
Living
they're
check
all
to
out
check,
there.
and now they don't have one.
And now they haven't had a check in weeks, because I think honestly at this point the fire had been a month old by the time we even started.
Oh wow.
With all the red tape and stuff they were going through, the electrical room had burned off the facility, which was crazy. They had to build a new one on the top of the building and then redistribute all the electric.
Oh wow. Sounds like a
So, but
hotel I
yes,
finished up not too long ago. We were going to try to use all the existing conduit and run new home runs, and well, they had all corroded since the '70s, and so we had to drill new ones.
oh yeah, yeah. This one, someone threw a cigarette butt in a trash can in a mechanical room, of course,
Oh wow.
and it was a smoking facility for meats, So the
Well, to tell
irony.
you how bad this industry pays, I got a friend of mine, and he worked at a company, and he oversaw like 3 offices, and also traveled on large loss, and you know, seemed to have topped out at about 90, with the company he was with, and so he goes from being a managerial level kind of guy, takes a job working for a company that's, and I don't want to give them an endorsement, even though they're people I've worked with, but ended up going to work for this other company, being more involved in the field, doubled his pay overnight. Just and so it's like, so here I am, I'm running this company in multiple locations, and I'm topped out, but I can go back and work in the field and make twice as much money.
Yeah,
And so it's like, and that he's created enough profit over the years to more than pay for that, and it's just restoration people, they lose good people because they don't
yeah.
want to take care of them. I mean, it's
They don't
just
they don't
it's
pay
tough.
well. They don't treat them well. Burnout's real in our industry.
It is,
Um,
and some of them treat well, but then they don't pair that with pay well,
well, yeah, or some of them
or
will
vice versa. Because I'm
or
paying you, I expect you to always be at my beck and call. you know,
some of them
and,
will do the BS treat well, which
yep,
where they tell you to their face, and every now and then they buy you things and do something nice for you, right? But the reality is, like you said, they're not paying you well. They're not giving you advancement opportunities. Building trust in you. They're not allowing, in my opinion, leaders to shine. I look at every project, I don't care if it's labor, if it's a super, if it's anybody that's in the management team, whoever's shining is going to be looked at to create new opportunity on the next one or promotion through that one.
yep.
Who's going to be somebody that stands out on the job? My brother owns a large company that does a lot of government work, for Corps engineer stuff, dirt work, drainage, tree work. Right now he has a fleet of barges on a big lake pulling dead trees off the banks. And
Oh
they're going
wow.
to cut back 20 more feet or so or fill this reservoir up higher, kind of thing. So all
Oh
kinds of different kinds of work, right? When the SNAP benefit shortage stuff was going on recently, I told him, I said, man, just have your HR lady figure out who's got the kids at home, who's got the babies that are being fed, man. Because these aren't a lot of guys that are up there making crazy, wage. These
yep,
are guys that maybe have a felony on their record,
yep,
guys that maybe didn't graduate high school. They're typically from where I'm from, East Kentucky, so they've all got something against them, holding them down in some form or facet. And I told them, I said, figure it out and make sure that they don't, throw in that little extra. You want to build loyalty quick, feed those babies that they have.
yep.
Make sure that them boys have happy mamas at home, leading up to Thanksgiving and Christmas, etc. He's great at giving out, Christmas bonuses. I think I told you the other day, we gave out amazing Christmas bonuses last year because it was the right thing to do. But it's easy, in my opinion, to take care of your people on and off the projects.
Oh
I
yeah,
just think it's lacking and overlooked. And like you said, overhead is always, a conversation, but it always gets paid. But yet, good employees hard to keep, and the time to retrain the time to build trust and loyalty, all of those things, you waste so much energy when you could do a few things. I can tell you what my employees like. They like it that I care about their families and I pay them well.
Yeah.
Other than that, they really don't care too much more from a boss's perspective. I listen to them and I pay them well. I support them for their kids' birthdays and their other, things, activities they have going on in their life, right? But I don't have to hold their hands. I don't have to, to be there every day in their face guiding them, right? I can be a good boss and a good leader by giving them a lot of trust, by building that trust through, years of example.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had 2 good bosses, in my lifetime, 2 real good ones. My last one, my son passed away last September, and while he was going through a major decline health-wise, uh, basically my last boss let me stay at home and not even really work and paid me through every bit of it. Then another boss I had, my father had a massive heart attack, triple bypass. It basically came home on hospice. Same thing. That boss, and that goes so far. I mean, I'm friends with both of those guys to this day and will forever respect them, send people and work their way because of how they treat their people. I mean,
Yeah.
that is, and it's one of those things. It's like, I learned something from everybody I work for, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but if I could always walk away with like one major life lesson, and, I've definitely have learned that, back when I had my stores, I thought I treated my people well, and, I was hard on them sometimes, but I took care of them financially and paid their medical 100% and things like that. But I wore them out and probably worked them too hard. And so there's always different things that you learn from people. And, that's what I love about this industry is it's almost like my wife's a nurse. And, back when she worked and, she could always find another job, and that's probably one of the good things about this industry is if you're
Yeah.
good at what you do, and the doors are open. Go find you another job if your boss isn't treating you right, and because the clients can do the same thing. If they got a vendor, whether it's us in the restoration world or a supplier or whatever, that don't treat them right, they can go find someone else. And so that's the client. People are finally becoming more client centric in our industry, but for a
Hmm.
long time, probably when you first got in it, and my first probably 8 or 10 years in it, we talked a good game that we were taking care of the client.
This episode is brought to you by Helix Co., the most advanced time and material ecosystem for ROMs, time and material billing, job sharing, with digital records and much more. Check us out at www.helixco.io.
But we never really did pay attention to the client. We didn't talk to the client. We didn't want to learn about where's your
Nope.
pain points or what can I do to get you open faster or can we get you a temporary office with that help? Things like that. It didn't matter. We came in full charge, all about us and us getting our job done and getting as much money out of the job.
The money
Whereas
grab.
yeah, it was
Yep.
always a money grab.
Yep.
Whereas now the money grab really is from creating lifetime clients and
Yep.
that long-term relationship because now it's not a one-off loss. I'm going to get every loss that client has from now on.
No,
I'm
and
not even in the industry right now. And there's a client that I've built such a good rapport with. They call me still, even though they know I'm not in the industry anymore. It's like, hey, what do I do? You know, and I'm like, all
well,
right,
and
you need to call
is
this person and that person.
you've done it long enough. You understand that once the trust has been built, right?
Yep.
Then man, it's easy to keep.
Yeah.
And with my biggest clients, years of phone calls, right? And of me dropping everything, making it happen for them, right?
Yep.
I told you the other day I recently lost a big client, and to know nothing I did, just politics, right? And
Yeah.
so they went with another corporation that uses an RFP process, and then they have specific vendors they wanted to work with, et cetera. Well, a competitor got out there, and not to say anything bad about anyone, but they didn't do a great job. And all the parties that were involved were people that had worked with me on a lot of claims. So first, all of these people were kind of shocked. Why is Kory and his group not involved? That's weird.
Yep.
And then as I've seen or talked to people since this loss happened last month, none of them are happy. And so sounds like what it's going to do is just bring it back to my doorstep. And I had been told many a times, the opportunity was going to come back around as I lost this. But it really, the reason that I'm going to get the opportunity again is that they're going to figure out a way to break protocol to use me
Yep.
and say, look, we understand that we had to go through this whole process, but here's an example of why we've been using this guy for years and want to continue to, because we have trust in him. We have, this rapport with my vendors and with the way that we respond and handle these losses, the approach to the team side of it, which I think we want to jump into real quick is, we take every approach on these, even though big client called me in. I'm not sitting there going, Mr. Adjuster, it's my way or the highway. I'm coming in saying, hey, Mr. Adjuster, Mr. Consultant, in your IH, what can we do to get this game plan going? How can we get the show on the road? I want to get this client operational. So how are all of us working together to achieve that? Right. And I've already
Yep.
got things in place. I'm already doing the way I look at it is I'm always trying to do the maximum of the minimum. People are going to think that's crazy, right? And what I mean is, I called it out on a project last year, and I said, "Hey, I need you guys to get out there. My clients had a fire at the facility. Um, when you get out there, open the whole facility, turn on the exhaust, maybe build one uh, exhaust wall is what I would call it, where I stack a bunch of 2000s and put them in a port to where it
Yep.
just is sucking." I was like, but don't go up and set up a bunch of air scrubbers throughout this facility and don't
Make
start
it to
any
where people
cleanup.
can't walk.
Yeah, like just, you don't understand like what the process is. I work for this client all the time. Just do the minimums. So I get out there, less than 24 hours later, my tractor trailers are rolling in, my personnel and everybody. And of course, they did so many things right, but they've placed like 30 air scrubbers in there. And then they tell me, well, the client really wanted us to do that. The client doesn't know what they want. And here's why.
Yeah.
They're not the pro at this. They called me for a reason. All right. They
Yep.
called me and have a relationship with me because I know what they need right now. And it's not me billing them $175 a day for 30 of these. Just sit here because you don't have the power distribution to plug any of them in correctly. So now you've tried to bring in another generator and power distro. I'm
Yep.
not approving any of that crap. I didn't say yes to that. And even though the client, I paid for it because the client said it's fine. But but
Just we're gonna
my
lay
point
down
to
the
them
law.
was this isn't the way you approach these types of clients. I'm not going in and doing status quo money grab. I'm going in and I'm a surgeon. I want to make sure that I'm understanding. We needed just for the correct airflow in that you needed 582 scrubbers, by the way,
Yep.
2000s. So you did nothing. You did
Yeah.
nothing. All you did was, and I wanted it to settle as quickly as possible. I wasn't trying to scrub the air because everything was palletized. So then we could just HEPA the tops of everything,
Yep.
and it's not a bigger problem, right? And that's what we ended up doing through most of it. But the areas, the point being is they go through and people are always into this money grab. It's not the business that I deal in. I deal in, we need you to come in and fix this problem, or we need you to come in and understand the type of things that we deal in and deliver your solution. I don't need to go back to the end of this job and fight you over how many damn air scrubbers were on the job. I don't need to go back and argue over PPE usage. I don't have those problems because on the front end, we're going to work together, and then I'm going to be transparent throughout. I'm going to give you a daily burn. I'm going to give you an upfront ROM. I'm going to communicate everything as soon as it happens. I don't have to try and hide something. Now, there's a reality that not every adjuster, consultant, engineer company is going to work that way, right? And
Oh yeah.
it's your job as the professional. And I say that as a project coordinator, project manager, assistant project manager, supervisor, or any role in between, estimator, even business development people. Um, your job, though, is to go through and do your best as a leader in that role to educate the client, educate the team, and work as a team in that manner. You're not like you and I said. I don't have to sit and spew off an email saying "You're wrong, Mister Adjuster." It's my
Yeah.
favorite when I get these forwarded to me. I have a plethora of adjusters that call me just to complain about other people in the industry, and I'm okay with them doing that. The
Yeah.
best part is most of those guys I get to bounce ideas off with. They are educating me, and I get to educate them. A lot of them are old school guys that literally will say, I've been doing this for 30 years. Is the industry evolving or changing? And I get to say, here's how I would do it.
Yep.
And it's amazing because they'll listen, right? Because again,
Yep.
so all of these people don't
Yeah, just don't tell them
or
that their way is wrong. Just say, "Hey, okay, I understand that. There's more than one way
yes.
to skin a cat. This is how I would approach it."
When you immediately come out, like, there's a dude in our industry that he wants to be the bee's knees. He's never going to be what he could be because he takes this brash approach to educating adjusters. And in my opinion, I've never been in a room with an adjuster that was going out of his way to do anything wrong. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
I think that I'm fortunate because, again, most of the time I'm getting referral sources from big, senior EGAs that are on complex opportunities. So I'm not going to deal with, somebody that's the first day on a large loss. But these people, they understand what I'm dealing with and what I bring to the table. If they don't, I don't need an enemy at the nucleus of the project, because that's what an adjuster is the very core of what you're trying to do. Because I'm not going to get a quick payment term if I don't have the adjuster telling Mr. Fortune 500 company, hey, we feel good with what Kory and his team have put together. I think you guys should go ahead. We're gonna release some funds so you guys can get Kory paid on his 10-day. And I was just telling you that I give a 10-day notice on the day one of every job. In 10 days, I need 1,000,005 or I need 1,000,008,
Yep.
whatever it is.
First draw.
And they don't shit themselves over it because we've talked about it and because I
Yep.
have people in my corner talking about it from the adjusting side. Plus, I also have the adjusting side releasing funds, knowing that this is what you're going to get is we're gonna keep the money flowing because we're agreeing as a team. Kory's not just going in willy-nilly and throwing equipment around and bringing personnel in. The dumbest thing I see on a rate sheet is a technical specialist. Nobody owns a technical specialist. Golly,
Amen. I've just got through
just
revamping a major
uh
that, and what I find funny too is, like, we're mitigators, all right, and I see restoration techs on everybody's freaking price list too, and it's like, okay, what's the difference between a mitigation tech and a restoration tech? I mean, you're here to do mitigation.
I,
You're
like,
not doing you're not doing now. If you're doing recon as part of it, I get it, but you're not, and it's like people have forgotten what our industry really is and our terms are. And I'll see specialists on there. I'll even see hygienist and all these things that are typically cost plus type of people,
and that's what
and
people
it's
don't
like,
understand. I've seen
what?
every one of them as I've audited. So that's how I got in with adjusters when I moved to Atlanta. Was I offered to audit invoices. Send me your mitigation invoices. Let me tell you how I would run these jobs, or what I literally in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, a church fire, and there's 4 electricians on the job, all named Miguel something, who were all GLs from the labor company, but then they've billed them on the invoice as electricians. And it's funny because it's one of them teams we talked about earlier. And you're just going, come on, guys. Here's what I would have done is built a relationship with the electrician that's come in, agreed to payment terms and structure, and then 10 and 10 him, because I just eliminated 2 red flags by doing that. And I think I told you, I put on a training last year and had a dozen adjusters attend as part of it. And then we talked just about red flags and how to avoid them. It was the first 48 hours of how to get a job kicked off. But really,
Yep.
all we did was talk about red flags, because if I'm putting a bunch of electricians on a job on my rate sheet, it's bullshit.
Yep.
And if it's not bullshit, why are you not running them as a third party through your own company, as another company subbing under you and creating quick pay discount, getting better pay terms? And so then you're at least making the volume and you're eliminating 2
And
problems.
there's only a few exceptions, when it comes to, like we had like an actual licensed electrician that traveled with us, that ran our
But but
generators,
but
that
you
kind of
didn't
thing.
have 3 dudes in the middle
Yeah.
of random Mississippi on a typical mitigate. But that's my point. Like,
Yeah, I
and
was
you
gonna
talked
say the
about it.
good thing is at any point if someone requested his license, I could provide it, and
And it
that's the
was easy to
difference.
provide, right? Like, it was, here's my guy, we're bringing in our own electrician. Awesome. Great. You
Yep.
communicated it. But it
Yep.
wasn't into the bill. Here's 3 dudes as an electrician. But, the technical specialist thing, I think, is a joke all the time.
Yeah, because, like, what is that? Yeah.
I was on a project a few years ago. It was a $13 million claim. And literally before I ever walked the job, I sat in the room with the consultant and the adjuster, and we got lucky is what we got. The consultant wanted a certain brand on it. The adjuster Said, well, if you want that brand, then I want to bring my guy from that brand, not your guy. And so they said, well, if that's the case, then they've got to go through and agree to pricing terms from our clients, three mitigation companies. And it was three of the big competitors, their rates. So they pull up, they call the attorney. We're sitting there on speakerphone for hours and hours and hours. And we go through each rate. I've got my rate sheet in front of me. They've got all the competitions. And I want to say that they gave me a little more on GL, a little less on skilled, but I was going to have 150 skilled on the job for 4 months, so who cares?
Yeah.
Things of that nature, right? We went back and forth, and it was nothing. You and I talked about it. I think there's a 3% difference,
Yeah, I did a national
across the majors.
comparative about 3 months ago, and I had every major price list that you could think of, and there was less than 3 to 5%.
Yeah. And
And
that's
typically,
sitting in this room. That's how it was.
yeah. And the only thing that I really found a major difference on is general labor was one that was kind of like depends on where that company was out of. I found that the ones that are out west, especially that are centered in California,
Yeah.
significantly higher on general labor, which granted, I'm sure, it is. They got the 8-hour overtime rule there and a
Yep.
couple other states. And, other than that, the only other thing that was hard to try to balance out to try to come up with to me is like a happy medium is the way people size their generator groupings. Some people do 100 to 199 kW. Some
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
have 75 to 150 kW, and trying to figure those things out price wise. And but other than that, yeah, it was less than 3%. There most things it was less than 1%.
So,
Especially
but
when you
that's
talk about portable equipment and consumable items because everybody
all that
buys
stuff.
or
Just
gets that from the same place.
yep. But that's never what's then changing the course of the job is the price sheet. It's the people involved, the people that are estimating, the people that are managing it, right? As you know, anybody can go and throw $1 million price tag on a job, and then how you manage that job depends on how much money you're going to make on it.
Yeah, one of the
Um,
wisest things I think I did see, and I've actually called this guy who sent me his price list, and I gave him kudos for it, is he had general labor, and then he had general labor with experience working with his company as like $4 more an hour. And
I don't hate it.
I did not hate it. And I was like, that is one of the best ideas I think I've seen in a while because there is a major difference in me calling up a general laborer from a labor supplier and then calling up the labor company that I use day in, day out that knows
Yeah.
my equipment, knows my trailers, where to get everything out, knows what we call everything, knows how I want them set. I'm going to be a ton more efficient with those guys. They're
Yep.
worth a
I
few
want
extra
the guys
dollars.
that were just on my last project, and
Amen.
last year,
Amen.
multiple times, literally, we were able to finish up a job and then go into another
But
one in halves.
he still didn't try to call them skilled labor.
Yeah.
He still didn't want to call them mitigation techs,
Because I
even though he
think
probably could have gotten away with that.
everyone pushes the skilled labor agenda hard. Look, if I'm not having that discussion on the front end with the adjuster and the consultant about, my labor usage, then I don't want to get paid at the end of the job. It's that simple. If
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean, the way
sitting there
I've done
talking
that
about,
is in my contract in my terms and conditions, I actually have a basically a definition section. It spells out what each person
yep,
does. And the way I've done it is, and I make this argument and it rubs some people the wrong way, but I usually win it when it comes to push to shove, is that anyone that is going to have a power tool in their hand, especially when we're talking about saws and ket saws and things
yep,
like that, I consider them skilled labor because I'm not going to hand one of those tools to somebody I just picked up off the street that I don't know what they're going to cut their hand or their leg off. And so that's kind of that position. Or if someone's building framing and things, that actually have some construction background that I can point to, that are doing that type of work. So I consider them skilled labor. General labor to me is someone who's moving equipment, carrying trash, cleaning up, things like that,
so you'll appreciate this then. I had a few projects last year that everyone was skilled labor on. And it wasn't because of the job task. It was because of the rules, the health and safety rules of the project. All right.
Yep.
So, and I get a lot of these. And so what I try to push for again is I want to be on the front end with that adjuster consultant talking about these things before I'm saying,
Before you get to
you're going to
pushback.
get, yeah, you're going to get here next week and I've got 100 skilled guys and 2 GL. but yet I've got 50 of these guys just doing demo or trash or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's different. If I'm, again, I'm doing a lot of fire soot cleanup type things. I've got people on lifts. I've got PPE protocol, like, donning and doffing. I mean, I literally had a job last year that it was an hour and a half a day for getting in and out of the facility.
Yeah.
But all that, when I go to look at it in the front end, I'm going to talk about all those things in my proposal
Yeah.
as I'm looking at the protocol and I'm developing my side by side proposal. Because I'm not necessarily developing an estimate. I'm putting a narrative together saying this is how I'm going to do every inch of this building. And what I'm looking at is the task associated, right? So if every single person in this building had to be donning and doffing basically 45 minutes in and out and then communicating, away entry and exit into this building. Mr. Adjuster, do you think that we should just go ahead and run everybody as skilled labor, basically considering what we're going to be doing? And he said, yes. He goes, I wouldn't run any GL on this project at all. He said, first off, the type of client. Secondly, the procedures. Thirdly, I wanted just people that were going to
Quality people.
that we're going to understand, like, this was a boring job. There was not a lot of action inside once you were inside. It was a very limited space, but it was the same thing for 45 days. And I'm glad I only had to go in the building a few times after inspecting it, because I don't want to have to go through multiple layers of Tyvek and all the different gear every single day. Even to use the bathroom was just a whole thing. Like, we beg people, if it's an emergency, like, we will get you out of here. But just for everybody's sake, let's try to go when we go. And because it was a process, right? We had to have personnel from the facility, and the USDA was involved in all of it, et cetera. I look at those and go, okay, I'm going to bring in skilled for it all, versus other types of opportunities. If I'm putting people on a lift, typically the people that are in that lift are going to be skilled. Anybody on the ground, I could probably run as a GL. Now, if I'm staying in production and having to work people in a lift, and the person on the ground's having to actually almost multitask, and what I mean is monitor the lift and stay out of other people's way, etc., I'm going to again have that conversation and say, let's look at the obstacles we're facing, and as a whole, the type of personnel we're going to get. And I was never a guy to just throw skilled labor on a job to get them, right? I want to try and make sure that if you're telling me you want a dozen GL on this job to handle this specific task, that's what we're going to do. You're probably going to run some idle time because of it. So let's just be real. We're probably better off going with more skilled and less GL for these things.
Oh, yeah. And so, one of the things that I still find shocking, and it's like, there's got to be a way, hopefully in the next few years, that we can get consultants and adjusters, but primarily consultants, all on the same page to understand this. And it's like, I've got some consultants I deal with that are like, all right, well, I want to know what these guys are doing, and so it's position according to task. 100%, that's what I love doing. But I hate it is like every third consultant I get, wants to say, oh, well, you had this guy as, skilled labor this day, and general labor this day, and then supervisor this day, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, read his notes, what he was doing. I am sometimes, even though I'm the director of our CAT team, sometimes I'm just skilled labor. I'm out there helping guys
I'm out
tear
there
up
just
sheetrock.
I'm just
Sometimes I'm
a
running in
pair
an
of hands.
extractor, and so I'm not going to charge you if that's all I did that day, because I had someone else overseeing the paperwork and the project itself. I'm not going to charge you as project coordinator for that one day that I'm out there, especially early on in the project. I'm just sucking up water. I mean, you want me to do that. And so I usually do that on purpose on a day, that way they can see that, here I am. I got myself listed as general labor on this day. And that way I can kind of make the point, at the end of the job, especially with a couple of the consulting companies I know out there. That's their MO, because then they always want to try to put everybody as the lowest that they were ever categorized at for the entire project. And it's like,
my favorite is when
guys.
you get a restoration owner or a bunch of salespeople or management that's come out to the job for the one day, and they're like, put them on the rate sheet today. Throw them on the sheet. You're like, yeah, let me put you as what? Observer? Like, come on, guys. You took away from value today. You didn't bring any. Let's be real. Adjusters and consultants aren't stupid. They're going to say, why was the owner of the business out there that day as a project manager? Like, he wasn't. He just wanted to see what was going on and try and bill you for it. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Gosh,
I say that
it's
all
never
the time.
more than that, you know. It's amazing the amount of adjusters that will call me and talk to me about, do you know so and so or this person? And you know, I try to use as many of my industry relationships as possible to give people a heads up to say, hey, you got a job going south, like you got a
Yep.
project with so and so. I mean, you'll see my brothers love to tease me. They're like, oh, you never work. And Heather will tell you I'm on my phone 24 hours a day, connecting, communicating, trying to help connect dots. And like you and I were talking about elevating the industry as a whole.
Yep.
But man, it blows my mind how many times people are just, you know, stepping in it and don't know. And it's a lack of communication. It's a lack of, I don't want to necessarily say accountability, but I had a project I gave to a franchise or to a company and said, you know, I need your help on this. Here's what's going on. They placed some equipment and then they didn't hear from the client for 2 weeks.
Mm.
Well, it wasn't your job to hear from the client. It was your job to stay proactive in communicating and getting in
Yep.
front of the client, because what did your equipment do for 2 weeks? It sat idle. It ran, don't get me wrong. And now you're going to try and bill for it. And now I've got
Yep.
to fight, you know, my relationship and say, hey, I've got this guy who put equipment out there for weeks and says that the person in charge hasn't been communicating. Well, here's his invoice, of course, with all that equipment on it. And I just said, man, it's your job as the professional, no matter what side of this you're on, but you're providing a service to know when you're not staying anywhere near industry standards, where you're just taking advantage of a situation. More than anything, I'm the one referring you. You got that loss for free,
Yep.
$0 invested, and it
Yep.
was a decent sized loss. And now you're going to turn around and
Milk it.
through me and my reputation over, you know, the way I would approach it is I'll go in and Mr. Adjuster, Mr. Consultant, how many days, how much equipment we thinking? Let's go ahead and agree on it right now, because I'm going to do whatever it takes to dry it out. And I already own that equipment. So I'm not going to fight you over it, because I'd rather continue to get the loss directly referred to me. So if
Yep.
I've got a loss with, you know, 50 DHUs on it and my guys accidentally placed 60, I'm not going to bill 60. I'm going to bill
Yep.
the 50. And I'm going to tell the adjuster, I put 10 extra on there. It's not in my bill. Don't worry about it. But we just we had some areas of concerns. You'll be amazed. He'll say, I'll throw them on. No, it's no problem.
Yep.
But I'm not going to come back after and say, oh, I had to throw those 10 on there and I didn't tell you. But right, I'm going to I'm going to, you know, like you and I were talking about negotiating. I've
Yep.
negotiated prices down. You know, you give me a number, it makes sense to get paid tomorrow. Great.
Yep.
I can agree to that right now.
Yep.
That money coming to me tomorrow versus me having to go back and
It
forth
blows my
months.
mind, you know, and a lot of good, and I'm not talking bad about these contractors because they're usually good contractors, but it blows my mind that they will stand on their principles forever, you know, or what they consider their principles at the detriment of their own pocketbook. I mean,
Yep.
and now granted, I don't like negotiating for what's right, you know, and giving it away.
100%.
But at the end of the day, if I can get paid next week, if I take a 5% haircut, what I tell people to do is that's fine. I've done it a million times, even 10%. But what I do is I don't negotiate on specifics. So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I do
I'm not
is I'm
negotiating this
settling.
part down.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get your attorney, if you're listening to this, to write you up a duress letter that you're settling under duress at that flat agreed upon dollar amount. And then that way they don't have, oh, well, last time you only charged me $100 a day for those DQs and now you're back at your 145 rate.
Yeah. I'm going to discount the total invoice. I'm not discounting
Yep.
individual anything, you know,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
like you were saying though, as well, I'm going to have those conversations through the process too, right?
The sooner you can come to an agreement, I mean, the first time I did that, I was kind of like irritated that this consultant is showing up. You know, this has been some years ago. Showed up, he showed up before I've ever had to this day. He was there within 48 hours of the loss, you know, and most of the times it's 5 days or 10
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Sometimes he was there within 48 hours. We sat down. My contract actually has language that if any of these rates are disagreeable, you've got 7 days or 10 days. I can't remember, you know, to sit down and come to an agreement. And that's exactly what we did. And money flowed faster on that project than I've ever had one flow. And so since then, you know, I've tried to work and be reasonable. You know, there are some things that sometimes in projects it's hard to educate, you know, like where they just don't want to pay for something, you know,
Yeah.
consultants don't want to pay for first aid and safety stations. And I'm like, you know, have you forgotten about OSHA? You know, and I'll send you the CFR that states that I have to have this on the job site and it's in my contract and it's in my price list, you know, fire extinguishers, especially when you're doing heavy cutting and stuff like
Yep.
that. And,
I mean,
you know,
we got paid to put deskants on a job last year to dry mud,
yeah,
but here's why: because the mud was off gassing
yeah,
as it was
drying.
decomposing
Yeah.
and drying, and so we ramped it up to dry it even faster and to dispel all of that off gas because we couldn't work in the environment. I mean, it was 100,000 square feet of 4 foot of mud.
Mm.
But it was the adjuster again communicating, and not me at the end of the job saying, "Here's here's an extra
Here's my
100,000
$15 million
CFM."
bill.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that 100,000 CFM that I got from Sunbelt to put on here. You're right. I called and said, "Hey, we can't work inside. I know that we have no point in drying out this building, but we had to do an inventory of all this specialized equipment. We had to demud it somehow, right? We had to be able to get in there, and more than anything, health and safety. We had to be able to get engineers through there. We had to be able to identify all of the equipment. So there was a long process of why, even though they were going to tear down the building in the end. So all of this is going on, and we know it's just waste, but we're trying to be as efficient as possible with the waste, right? Man, I never would have thought how quick that mud, as soon as it started to warm up at all, became, its own toxin, right? And its own problem. But
Yeah.
as we communicated it, the adjuster immediately said, "Do what you need to do to correct this problem. We've got to be able to have people working in there, and you guys have to be able to have a safe environment, right?" But we
Yep.
didn't wait till the end, which most contractors love to do.
Oh,
We
yeah.
communicated it, we made it a priority, and we discussed pricing right then of it's going to be this much daily burn based on what our vendor said, etc. It wasn't a hassle. It was a waste. You're right. I always hate when someone says, "Oh, I'm drying out this concrete building," and saying, "Well, have we at least extracted and resolved the source before we started worrying about drying per se, or what's the reason for our drying and the type of drying?" And in this one, there was definitely no purpose to dry out this building other than a health and safety, standpoint. But like you said, the amount of kickback you get from that so often is crazy. And I think that the problem is delivery in our industry. You got a bunch of brash contractors that we think that we're the pros, we're the best, we're going to go out and get ours. When in reality, you got a bunch of adjusters and consultants that have, high level educations, continuing education as well, and a lot of things going on, and they feel the same. My dad said it's kind of like playing golf. You look at the different styles of golfers, and they're not going to necessarily all be fit athletes, but when you get up the tee and whoever hits the ball the longest, you usually know who's going
Look
to
at
be the
John
best
Daly.
golfer. Yeah, exactly. So you're not going to judge a book by its cover. It's the same in our industry. People
Have you
just have to
found?
understand.
Yeah, have you found it's been amazing to me that, and we'll cover this one, and then we'll probably set up another one because I know, I mean, you could probably talk for hours. But um, I
This is
have,
hour 75.
yes. So, I found it interesting that, and I think probably it's just more of a lack of knowledge, but like contractors that do not control their work site and their job site, and by that, like, if it's a hard hat zone for you and your guys, and you're going to let regular people walk into there, whether it's the owners of the building or the tenants or consultants and adjusters,
Yep.
without any PPE on, what are you doing? And I always try to tell everybody, they look at me like a deer in the headlights when I tell them that. I said, listen, I make everybody that walks into my building, especially when it's like major disasters after
Yeah.
hurricanes and there's some structural stuff going on. They sign in and out too.
Sign in. They go through your PPE station. They
Yep.
even have to go through your health and safety station, depending on what your
Yep.
protocols are for the site walk. I'm adamant against it because the same reasons you are. I promise you, if I'm going to set the standard for my own guys to follow, I'm setting that for everybody, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to keep that standard so that those people go through and see it. I'm also going to document it. I'm going to have pictures showing it. You're not going to catch
Yep.
a picture on a daily update that shows people without the proper PPE. You're not going to find that they haven't had their daily safety briefings, et cetera, right? Like we're
Yep.
going to make that a crucial part of it. I say twofold. First off, I get paid for all that time.
Yep.
All right. I get paid to be safe. That's awesome. I also
Yep.
get paid to use that stuff, right? So as an owner, I see the value there. Secondly, safety in my personnel, right? I want these guys to come home. I'm not going to cut into a wall if I haven't had it tested for asbestos.
Yep.
I'm not going to put them in a situation where I'm going to expose them to something and they're not in the proper PPE to handle whatever that exposure level is, right?
Yep.
because I make money on those things, my PPE, my equipment, those things, but my personnel, I make more money on them than anything else because, like you said, good people coming back, seeing that they're well taken care of, all those things. I want to make sure that every time someone's on a job site, they're going to adhere to the standards. We had a guy at a project calls last year. He said, Kory, twice I've seen people without their safety glasses on. This is like day 3. And I'm just like, come on, guys. Had a quick team meeting and it was just one day, talked about it. Project goes on, no big deal. I don't hear anything else about it. It wasn't the last time he had that issue, but it was the last time for a while. What he realized is that there was a guy on site that if he went and just mentioned one thing to him, that guy literally resolved every problem. So at the end of the project, I say, hey, we didn't have any more PPE issues, did we? It feels like it got resolved. He's like, it got resolved twice. He goes, you guys immediately when I communicate to you, he's like, but your guys never mentioned it again to you if I had a problem with it because we dealt with it directly each time.
Yeah,
I
so
was like,
what I
great.
always tell contractors to do, I was like, listen, go into a regular construction site, go visit this
Yeah,
building being built down the street, and see if they even let you drive inside the fence.
they won't
Without.
let you anywhere near it.
And
Like
if you do have
if you're not
permission to be
PPE'd
there,
out.
and if you do have, and especially like industrial plants, I've gone just
Yep.
to do like ERPs and stuff like that, with them, and they're like, all right, where's your steel toe boots at? I'm like, hang on, they're in my truck. I forgot them. Let me go grab that. Where's your hard hat at? You better have all that stuff, because
Hair
they're not going
nets,
to let you
beard
into those
nets.
work zones. So why do restoration contractors let people get away with it? And I've had consultants come back, one with a couple of letters, I'm not going to say, and push back on me. It's like, we can go in there, we have our own insurance and this and that. And I'm like, no, you don't. This is my work zone. It's my liability. It's on the line. I said, and besides, your wife or your mother's going to be mad if you get in there and get electrocuted by something and we don't know to even come look for you.
Yeah, I mean, I
Come
think
on.
that what a lot of these guys don't understand is like every project I've ever been on that was a true, GC running a big project. You're saying a new commercial industrial type project. There's protocols that everyone's following from the moment they break ground.
Yep.
There was protocols they were following before they even broke ground. There was environmentals and all the things, right? But on like most of ours, again, food manufacturing, I I know that when I'm just doing an inspection, even I'm probably going to be in latex booties, latex
Yep.
gloves. I'm going to be in hairnet, beard net, safety goggles, full Tyvek, and probably even aprons. A lot of the time, and so it's not like I'm gonna go in there and be like, well, I'm too good for this because I run the business, right? No, I go in and I'm the first one donning and doffing whatever I've got to do I'm gonna put in my earplugs, I'm gonna have the works ready to
A
go.
lot of
And I'm
contractors.
helping.
Yep. I spoke to Jeff Moore last week. He was on the podcast, and I really hope that they're successful. They are actually trying to get a NICS code for our industry because there isn't one, and then we'll
Yeah.
actually be recognized as an industry. But, I'm hoping that what that's going to do is that's going to help make a lot of these things, put them in place and actually elevate our industry because a lot of the guys, they still, they're running million and multi-million dollar restoration companies out there, but they're still acting like they're two chucks in a truck in the way they run their business,
Yep.
and we've got to fix this. I mean, and with that, to me, it goes all the way down to the standards, and I love the ICRC. I've known a bunch of those people there for years. I got people there I can pick up the phone and call if I need help with anything. But our standards are going to have to become readily available. I can
Hmm.
look online and I can find the electrician standards. I can find the plumbing standards. I can find the roofing standards, anything that is a legitimate industry. We're the only one that you have to buy this book. Is not available online for everybody for general knowledge. You've got to own the book or have the digital copy that you pay for to open up and research. And that's got to be changed. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I
is
agree.
going to have to be changed eventually.
I don't
Um,
know what that looks like, but I agree with you. As you look at all of the other industries out there that are, big trades, right?
yep.
We're the one that you can't find now, and I'm sure people can throw examples of others, but for the
Yep.
most part, when I sit and think, there aren't many trades that you can't get access to immediately and know.
Yeah, the only ones that I find are tough to find is if it's, the state regulations. Every
Yeah,
state has their own little bit of a code that goes a little bit different if they're
and
not
even
following the
even that
national
just
code.
depends on the county or the state, right? Like
Yeah.
you,
But
you never know how
that's
good their web
different than an
services are.
international code, which is what ICRC is trying to
Yep.
become. Because I think they're in Tokyo this week presenting at an event there, and so they're trying to become this international standard. Well, that's great, but you're going to have to probably start, carrying that with, making your money from the licensing rather than the
Yeah,
selling of the standard,
I
but
agree. I think it's gonna be that people have to renew and do other things, but the documentation themselves got to be readily available.
yep.
Um, no,
All right,
that's
man.
that's a
Well,
good point, man.
yeah, we'll end on that point today. We'll probably set up another one maybe after
Yeah,
Thanksgiving holiday or something like that. But I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the time, and yeah, a lot of good conversation. Like you said, we could go on for days and days about ways to improve the industry and to elevate it. So I
Yep.
appreciate you taking the time, Mike.
Yeah, I think next time when we talk, we'll actually probably spend a lot more time on that, on different things that we can do to kind of help, elevate the industry and try to come up with some plans of things that we can actually talk about ahead of time.
No, I think that'd be great.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, see you, man.
K3T Team Tatum, based out of ServPro of St. George and Salt Lake City, specializes in commercial large loss and complex claims nationwide. From industrial fires and major water events to hurricane response and high-stakes business interruption scenarios. The team was built to handle the projects that require advanced expertise, coordination, and precision. With a fully remote national team, K3T combines technical skill, strategic planning, and rapid mobilization to support clients across the country. Their focus is simple: deliver reliable solutions on the losses that matter most, the ones where accuracy, efficiency, and experience make all the difference.